Hey friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, you're in for something special today. Imagine this, you're watching a story unfold that feels like it was pulled straight from your own heart. A love so real, so patient, so full of quiet battles and breathtaking triumphs that by the end, you'll be wiping away tears and questioning every moment you ever held back from saying what you truly felt. If stories like this, raw, emotional, the kind that remind you why love is worth every scar, move you, then do me a favor right now, smash that like button, drop a comment with your own "I thought you'd never ask" moment, and hit subscribe with the bell on. We're building a community of dreamers and believers here, and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. Alright, let's dive in. Grab your tissues. This one's called I nervously asked, "Will you be my wife?" She smiled, "I thought you'd never ask." My hands were trembling so badly that the little velvet box in my pocket felt like it weighed 100 kilos. It was a cool December evening in Lahore, the kind where the air carries the faint scent of jasmine from the roadside stalls and the call to Maghrib prayer echoes softly from the minarets in the distance. We were sitting on that old wooden bench in Baghi Jinnah, the one we'd claimed as ours since our university days. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in strokes of orange and pink, and Hira was laughing at something silly I'd just said about the pigeons fighting over crumbs. Her laugh, God, that laugh, it still made my chest tighten after all these years. I swallowed hard, my throat drier than the desert winds of Khalistan. This was it. 10 years in the making. 10 years of stolen glances, late-night calls, unspoken promises, and fears that had kept me silent far too long. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the box, and before I could overthink it for the millionth time, the words tumbled out. "Hira, will you be my wife?" She turned to me slowly, her dark eyes widening just a fraction, those long lashes catching the last rays of sunlight. For a split second, the world stopped. The laughter of children playing nearby faded. Even the distant traffic on Mall Road seemed to hush. Then, that smile, the one that had saved me on my darkest days, bloomed across her face like the first flower after a brutal winter. She didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She just tilted her head, her voice soft, warm, laced with a lifetime of knowing. "I thought you'd never ask." And just like that, the dam broke. Tears I didn't know I was holding back spilled over. I pulled her into my arms, burying my face in her hair that smelled of coconut oil and home, and we laughed and cried all at once, right there under the ancient banyan tree that had witnessed so many of our secrets. But to understand why that single moment felt like the culmination of 1,000 unspoken prayers, why it healed wounds I thought would never close, we have to go back. Way back. To the very first time I saw her. It was 2014, my first year at Government College University in Lahore. I was a scrawny 18-year-old from a modest neighborhood in Johar town, the kind of kid whose father drove a rickshaw and whose mother stitched clothes at night to pay for my books. My name is Ahmed, plain, ordinary Ahmed, and I carried the weight of every expectation on my narrow shoulders. Dreams of becoming a writer, of telling stories that mattered, but reality was tuition fees, power outages, and the constant fear that one bad semester would end it all. Hira was in my English literature class. She walked in on the first day like she owned the room, not in an arrogant way, but with this quiet confidence that made everyone sit up a little straighter. She was from a slightly better-off family in Model Town, her father a professor at Punjab University, her mother a homemaker who baked the best sheer kurma I'd ever tasted. Hira had this way of pushing her glasses up her nose when she was thinking deeply, and her dupatta always slipped just a little, like it had a mind of its own. I noticed her immediately, but I was too shy to even say salam properly. Our first real conversation happened during a group project on Shakespeare. We were paired together, fate, I suppose, and while the others goofed off, Hira and I stayed back in the library until closing. "Romeo and Juliet is overrated," she said, flipping through the pages with a smirk. "True love isn't grand gestures and poison. It's showing up every day, even when it's boring and hard." I laughed, but inside, something shifted. That night, as I walked home under the flickering streetlights, her words echoed in my head. For the first time, I felt seen. Over the next 2 years, our friendship bloomed like the bougainvillea vines on the college walls. We studied together in the canteen, sharing samosas and endless cups of doodh patty. We'd argue about books. I loved Faiz Ahmed Faiz's poetry for its raw pain, she preferred Parveen Shakir for its gentle hope. On weekends, we'd sneak off to Anarkali Bazaar, bargaining for cheap earrings she'd wear just to make me smile. She teased me mercilessly about my terrible handwriting, and I pretended to hate her for always beating me in quizzes. But deep down, I was falling hard. There were moments that etched themselves into my soul. Like the time during finals when I stayed up 3 nights straight because my father had been in an accident, a minor one, but enough to scare me. Hira showed up at my door at 2 a.m. with a thermos of chai and her notes. "You don't have to do this alone, Ahmed," she whispered, sitting on the charpoy in our tiny courtyard while my mother slept inside. We talked until dawn about fears and futures. She told me about her own struggles, how her family expected her to marry soon, to a suitable boy from their circle, and how she wanted to teach literature, to inspire young girls like her little sister. In that quiet hour, with the stars fading above us, I almost told her. Almost. But the words stuck. What if she laughed? What if it ruined everything? By our final year, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone could see it, our friends, even the professors. "You two are endgame," they'd say. But I was drowning in self-doubt. My grades were good, but my family was struggling. Abu's rickshaw broke down, and the repairs ate up every rupee. I took a part-time job tutoring kids in the evenings, coming home exhausted, smelling of diesel from the buses. Hira never complained. She'd wait for me outside the tuition center sometimes, with parathas wrapped in foil from her mother. "Eat, stupid," she'd say, shoving one into my hands. But inside, I was crumbling. How could I ask her to wait for a boy who couldn't even promise her a decent life? Graduation came like a storm. We threw our caps in the air on that sun-baked ground, and for a moment, everything felt possible. That night, at the farewell party in the hostel, we danced, awkwardly, to old Atif Aslam songs, and when the lights dimmed, she leaned in close. "Ahmed, whatever happens next, don't disappear on me, okay?" Her voice was small, vulnerable. I nodded, my heart hammering, but I still didn't say it. The next morning, I got the call. A job offer in Dubai, junior accountant at a construction firm. It was a miracle, a chance to send money home, to lift the burden off my parents. But it meant leaving. Leaving her. The airport goodbye was the hardest thing I'd ever done. She stood there in her simple white shower kameez, eyes red from crying the night before. 6 months, I promised, hugging her tight. Then I'm back, and we'll figure it out. She nodded against my chest. I'll be here. Studying for my bachelor's of education. Just, come back to me. As the plane took off, I stared out the window at the shrinking lights of Lahore, and for the first time, I whispered the words to the empty seat beside me. I love you, Hira. Dubai was a different world. Skyscrapers that touched the clouds, endless shifts at the office, the constant hum of AC and the ache of loneliness. I shared a tiny room with 3 other Pakistanis, sending every extra dirham home. We talked every night on WhatsApp, voice notes at first, then video calls when the Wi-Fi allowed. She'd tell me about her classes, how she was volunteering at a girls' school in her neighborhood, teaching poetry to kids who reminded her of us. I'd share my frustrations, the boss who yelled, the heat that made you forget what winter felt like. But distance has a way of twisting things. Misunderstandings crept in like shadows. One night, after a brutal 14-hour day, I called her exhausted. She sounded distant. Ahmed, my parents, they're talking about proposals again. A cousin from London. He's stable, they say. My stomach dropped. Don't, I begged. Please, just a little longer. She sighed. I am waiting, but how long? You're there, living this whole life without me. We argued, the first real one. Words like selfish and unrealistic flew. I hung up angry, then cried in the bathroom so my roommates wouldn't hear. That was the first crack. The real storm hit 2 years in. My mother fell ill, diabetes complications, the doctors said. I flew back immediately, quitting the job without a second thought. Lahore felt smaller now, heavier. Abu was broken, the house smelled of medicines and worry. Hira was there every day. She'd come after her teaching job, helping my mother with injections, cooking dal for us, sitting with me on the rooftop as the monsoon rains lashed the city. You're not alone in this, she'd say, holding my hand when no one was looking. But her family was pressuring her harder now. The cousin had visited, sent gifts. He's a good man, her father told her. Ahmed is struggling. What future is that? I was at my lowest. Jobless in a city where opportunities felt reserved for the connected. I started a small tuition center from home, literature and English for matric students, but the money was peanuts. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, replaying every moment we'd shared, wondering if I'd waited too long. One evening, after a fight where she snapped, maybe it's time to let go, I walked the streets of Johor town until dawn, the rain soaking me to the bone. I ended up at her street, staring at her window from afar, too afraid to knock. That night, I wrote her a letter, pages and pages of my heart, but I never sent it. Then came the turning point. 6 months after I returned, her engagement was announced. Not officially, but the family dinners, the whispers, it was happening. I was invited to the small gathering at her house. I went, dressed in my best, heart in shreds. She looked beautiful in her maroon dress, but her eyes were hollow when they met mine across the room. Later, in the kitchen, she cornered me. Why didn't you fight for us, Ahmed? Why? Tears streamed down her face. I love you. I always have. But you never said it. That broke me. I grabbed her hands, right there amid the clatter of dishes. I was scared, Hira. Scared I wasn't enough. Scared I'd drag you down with my mess. But I can't lose you. Not like this. We cried together, hidden behind the fridge, and for the first time, I said the words out loud. I love you. More than anything. She kissed my forehead, quick and desperate. Then prove it. To them. To me. The next year was war. Not with swords, but with quiet determination. I poured everything into the tuition center, expanding it to weekend batches. I took online courses in digital marketing at night, built a small website, started freelance writing gigs for local magazines. Money was tight, I skipped meals sometimes, but I sent what I could to her family through a mutual friend, small gestures to show I was serious. Hira fought her battles too. She delayed the engagement talks, stood up to her father in ways that shocked everyone. This is my life, she told him one night, voice steady. Not a transaction. Challenges kept coming. My father's health worsened, we sold the old rickshaw to pay bills. Hira's grandmother passed, and in the grief, her family pushed harder for the London match. There were days I doubted everything. One particularly bad night, after a rejected bank loan for expanding the center, I sat on the same bench in Bagi Jinnah alone, staring at the stars. Is this it? I whispered. Have I lost her? But then my phone buzzed. A voice note from her, Ahmed, remember the time we got lost in the old city during that book fair? You held my hand the whole way back, even though you were terrified of the crowds. That's the man I love. The one who shows up. Keep showing up. I did. I hustled like never before. Landed a contract writing scripts for a local drama channel, small, but it paid. Bought my first proper suit. Started saving for a ring, the one I'd seen in a shop in Liberty Market, simple gold with a tiny emerald, her birthstone. Slowly, her family softened. Her mother started inviting me for iftar during Ramadan. Her father, a stern man, began asking about my plans over tea. It wasn't approval yet, but it was a door cracking open. The proposal day was planned like a heist. I borrowed my cousin's bike, picked up flowers from the Sunday market, red roses, her favorite. Booked that bench in the park for a quiet evening. My hands shook the whole ride there. When I asked her, and she said those words, it wasn't just a yes. It was redemption. It was every sleepless night, every doubt, every prayer answered in the most beautiful way. We got married 6 months later, in a simple nikah at her family home. No lavish walima, just family, friends, and the scent of Moshe garlands. As I slipped the ring on her finger, she whispered, "Took you long enough, Ahmed." We laughed through the tears. That night, under the same banyan tree where it all began, we sat in silence, her head on my shoulder. "We made it," she said. "Because you finally asked." Friends, here's the truth this story taught me, and I hope it teaches you too. Love isn't about perfect timing or being ready. It's about the courage to speak when your voice shakes. It's about fighting through the storms, not because it's easy, but because the person on the other side is worth every scar. Hira and I still have our fights, about whose turn it is to do the dishes, about raising our little daughter with the same fire we had. But we show up. Every day. If you're watching this and there's someone in your life you've been waiting to tell, don't. Pick up the phone. Write the letter. Show up on their doorstep. Because one day, you'll look back and realize the only regret is the time you wasted in silence. What about you? Have you ever been in that nervous, heart-pounding moment? Share in the comments, I read every single one. And if this story lit a spark in you, like it, share it with a friend who needs to hear it, and subscribe because we've got more real, raw love stories coming, the kind that make you believe again. Until next time, keep loving fiercely. This is Ahmed, signing off from Lahore. Allah Hafiz, and take care.